our next storyteller is a New Yorker, even though she still lives in the Bay Area now, but I think we can call her a New Yorker, an accomplished storyteller, Mindy Myers.
So I'm 15 years old and I'm living in New York City with my parents. My parents are Holocaust survivors from Austria and were so traumatized they really did not have an understanding of American culture. So it was really up to me to try to find a summer activity for myself. Somebody at school told me about a program called the American Friends Service Committee. It was a Quaker organization that took 20 teenagers to a remote part of America, and they flew us out there and paid for the food and lodging, and in return we worked on houses and did some landscaping, things like that. Anyway, I was accepted, and I went to a place called New Era, Michigan. You've never heard of it? No one's ever heard of it. It was about 100 miles north of Muskegon. These kids all stayed in a farmhouse. The girls all slept in one room, the boys slept in another room, and then there was a leader couple. We were placed in the back of a truck. We all stood up and they drove us into town. Town was one general store, and the rest of us sort of scattered and worked on houses. And then at noon we went back to the general store and had a lunch, and then went back to the houses and continued our work. And then the truck would pick us up and we'd drive back to the farmhouse. So at the end of the day, they had something called a friendship circle. And, you know, I am from New York. We don't do friendship circles, okay? You know, it's a little too kumbaya for me. So, and they're swaying and singing. Oy, I thought I'll never last. This is terrible. So after a couple of these, I went to the lead and I said, you know, excuse me, but I'm Jewish and these friendship circles go against my religion. And she believed me. So while they're kumbayaing, you know, I leave the farmhouse, and as far as the eye could see, it's like fields, green fields. And okay, so I walk out of the farmhouse and I go across the street and I discover that the fields are pot fields. Oh. Miles of pot fields. So the very next day, while we're at the general store, I buy myself some rolling papers and a lighter. And while they're doing kumbaya, I go out and pick some pot and put it in the oven to dry, and roll it up and smoke a couple of doobies. And so this became my regular thing. I couldn't wait for the end of the day. So by around the end of month 1, I was smoking like, it was very mild pot, but pot nonetheless. So to get a buzz on, I needed to smoke like 2 or 3 joints, which I did. So after 2 months, it was the end of the program, and I thought, well, you know, I can't do without my little regular customary pot smoking. So I'm 15, remember that. I threw away all my clothes and I filled my laundry bag with 16 pounds of pot. And put the 16 pounds of pot in a suitcase. I know. And my father met me at LaGuardia Airport. And so my sleeping bag came out of the carousel and my guitar, and I'm waiting for my suitcase, and it's just not there. And my father says, don't worry about it, the clothes are old and probably has paint on it and holes. Let's go to the complaint department counter, and we'll put in a request about, can you find the luggage? And it was only then that the thought occurred to me, you know, this could be bad. So my father did a description of the luggage, and I'm kind of wondering what the heck is going to happen. And they said, no problem, we'll find it within a day and deliver it to your house. And so the next day, unbelievable, but I answered the phone, and it was TWA. Do you remember TWA? Yeah, and they said, oh yeah, we found the luggage. Would you like us to open it to make sure that it's yours? I said, no problem, I believe you, just bring it on over. So my parents, luckily, were out for a couple of hours, and sure enough, they delivered the suitcase and left. I opened it up, and there were the 16 pounds of pot, but I had to be quick about drying it out because my parents were coming home. So I'm shoving it in and out of the oven on these cookie trays, the same trays that my mother made, like Linsa torta cookies and blah, 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 blah on. So finally, all the pot is dried, and I find this like tin, large, pagoda-shaped box, and I think, perfect. I'll crunch up the pot, put it in there, no problem. And I thought, if this is in my bedroom, my parents are gonna get suspicious. So I put it on sort of a counter, like near the steps. You're getting ahead of me. So every day I would come home from school, roll a couple of joints, and say I'm taking a walk and get stoned. And one day, I come down the steps for breakfast, and the pagoda is sitting on the breakfast table. And I see my father put in a tea infuser thing, and fill it up with the pot leaves, put it in his hot cup of water, stir it around, take a sip, and say to my mother, this is the best tea I've ever had.
Mindy, nice.